So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrian, and I'm actually very glad to be here. I traveled from Shanghai to Melbourne as of yesterday, and I like the weather here, though it's a little bit cold. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about what we did in China as well as for the fintech cloud. I believe it's a very interesting client story that could benefit some of the users in Australia. Maybe not exactly, but I think for you to know that there's actually fintech industry leaders out there who are really keen to adopt OpenStack, right? By the way, I work for EasyStack, and I'm actually responsible for the global markets for EasyStack. So anything that's outside of China is my turf, if you will, and it's interesting times right now because OpenStack is really growing rapidly in China and outside of China. And today, basically, presenting over here in this event, OpenStack Day at Melbourne's, it's also because Aptera is our EasyStack's strategic partner, and we are really keen to look at some of the routes to market, working with Aptera and also with the Australian clients right here. For EasyStack, we're basically an open cloud solution provider, and of course, we're going to be introducing the first large-scale fintech industry cloud use case right after this. So let me just kind of add on to what this morning, there was some survey about the OpenStack state of what's happening out there globally. Interestingly, so there is this survey that I actually received from my colleague who works closely with the Chinese authorities, and this Chinese Academy of Information Communications Technology. They released a survey that was in April this year, last month, and it's a kind of a 30-page document. In there, it talks about the open source technology adoption, especially cloud adoption within China itself, the Chinese enterprises and organizations who are keen on this sort of solutions. And what we're seeing here is that based on all the respondents, it's a little bit small, but you can see that we have about 2,800 over respondents who participated in this survey across 70 cities in China, across the various industries. I'll not go through all of them, but you can see that there's so many, in terms of production and dev tests, which builds a pipeline to production. It is actually more than, I would say, more than 50, or close to 50, more than half, right? And then there's a lot of them that participate in the surveys that are really, really keen to actually adopt OpenStack. They're under evaluation, they have plans to do POCs, and then there are others who are, I should not go into it, but you get that it's based on workloads. It's really growing rapidly in China. And then if I move on to the next survey number that I have over here, in terms of adopting OpenStack in these respondents, there's 200 over of them that gave their results, or they submitted to these questions, right? Almost half of them are actually using this licensed enterprise OpenStack solutions from a commercial vendor, right? Obviously, they're looking out for specific SLA and support from people like us, EasyStack, Red Hat, Mirantis, etc. out there. And at the same time, interestingly, there's also a lot of them that kind of develop their own. They roll their own. They get the community release, and then they do something around it, and then they kind of they support it themselves, right? It's interesting to know that. So it's very open. People are really getting onto the bandwagon. And obviously, there's also the smaller percentages that actually license from the vendor, but they kind of support it on their own, right? So I just want to give you some numbers on that. And if we go into the financial services banking sector, even though the respondents are really small, 40 over, more than 60% of them actually do work with a vendor like EasyStack or OpenStack vendor solution, because they really need the support, right? And And of course, why do they do that? I mean, it's because if they maintain their own, if they write things on their own, it may just get out of sync with with the later releases, and they're going to have a hard time. They are not in the business of maintaining code and making sure the APIs of the newer release would to work well with the previous releases. This is stuff that people like us do. So that's why you can see that more than 60% of these guys are actually doing that, right? And so getting right into this kind of case study over here, there's a lot of information in this chart, right? But I just want to give some background to our client that we have been working on for the past close to 1 year, who is based in Shanghai, China. So the background about China Industry Bank is actually one of the top 8 leading banks, commercial shareholding banks in the country. So it's really one of the top ones. It's founded in 1988, right? In the top 1,000 world banks, 2015 survey ranked by the Banker of British magazine, Industry Bank was at number 36, and in Tier 1 capital, and the number 3 top 10 world banks in terms of cost-income ratio indicator. That means that they are really out there. They're doing the right thing for the industry. They're leading the industry, if you will, right? So I just want to set the stage for that. And then if you look at in 2005, right, China Industrial Bank actually launched its own bank-to-bank business platform, if you will. And in Chinese, they like the figure 8, as you can see. So they have 8 business segments that they focus on, right? And obviously, there's technology delivery, there is payment settlement, there's wealth management, there's financing services, there's organization and structure optimization, and so on. These are a lot of the core services that they provide out of this bank-to-bank platform in 2005, right? And then, so what are they trying to do is that they're trying to provide these comprehensive services to enable the smaller banks or the financial institutions that are on this platform to be able to become more competitive in the banking business, that they provide solutions to their end consumers. At the same time, they also want to increase their capabilities, meaning the smaller banks do not have the rich set of management capabilities, if you will. So these are the 2 main goals they're trying to achieve. And then 10 years later, moving to the top right-hand column, if you will, in this chart, you see that the number of member banks that join this bank-to-bank platform, it's really a big number. There's 637 banks who actually join this platform, and then out of that, in the circle that's smaller, there's 269 that's on it for the tech capability, meaning they think that tech is going to be a very critical role if they sort of join this banking platform, right? And at the same time, a lot of the other numbers in there, but what I'm trying to give you a kind of a perspective is that the number of member banks are really huge in there, hundreds of them, and during 2015, the number of locations, as you will, the interconnected network of bank services, there was like 35,000 of them within China, across China, and there's a settlement amount of 2.5 trillion yuan, which is quite a big number. And then moving on, like a month later, what happened? I mean, this whole platform has been growing rapidly. The IT department of this industry bank sort of figure out that they have to move beyond the traditional boundaries of what they have. So what did they do? They got spun off to be a separate entity, right? As you can see, in December 2015, China Industrial Bank FinTech was established as an organization or a separate company that has a couple of shareholding companies. Write down the logo there, it's a bit small to read. But these shareholding companies or shareholders, they are actually leaders in the industry. They are either focusing on banking IT, providing that tough sort of capability, or they are focusing on non-banking but financial services IT. At the same time, they are also doing payment and settlement. So they're combining all their capabilities, if you will, to become CIB FinTech, today, right? And then when we move on to 2016, the year, March 2016, the fintech cloud was launched called CFT Cloud. And that actually provides not just the what we usually know as the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, etc., but also bank as a service. They call it, it's kind of a new terminology in the industry, right? But that's really to actually make the members bank to be able to adopt cloud successfully, right? And so, what's the business impact today? So I gave a little bit background on what industrial bank fintech is about. So in terms of market share in cloud services, they are number one in China, the entire country, by providing a leading industry cloud, platform for their member banks. At the same time, they have 3 key data centers in 3 different geographic locations. Obviously, it's important because that's really critical for business continuity, and in case there's outage in one location, doesn't affect the rest, right? And you see that there's 311 member banks that have actually adopted the CFT cloud, but then the membership actually grew from that 600 over member banks to 900 over member banks today in this platform. And it's really a big number. Almost 1,000 banks are on this platform today. And of course, the interconnected services also get growing rapidly to almost 44,000, the figure. And it's important because as these members, they actually get a lot of benefits by being on the platform. They actually lower the cost. They share a lot of services. Consumers of their products or services on the same platform will get a better, discount or pay less fees when they perform transactions on this. So it's really a win-win for a lot. And Gartner actually, there's a quote below that, tells that it's really, CIB FinTech is really the market leader, if you will. This is actually published in early this year, where Gartner worked with the FinTech team to determine that they're actually the leader in there, right? So I just want to give a little bit of flavor of what the solutions are, or what did we do in there, or rather what the bank is looking out for, right? So if you look at the top part, it's really important to note that CIB FinTech is trying, is really looking out to put together or to marry 2 things together, what they're good at doing, which is the industry aspect of the business, the banking and financial services they provide. At the same time, they are also challenged by a lot of the internet technology or providers out there in China today. They have their own platform or small products or services, and therefore they're trying to come up with something that's creative and that's able to capture the consumers out there, right? So the real goal when we started working with them is really to promote the deep convergence of these 2 aspects, the technology and the business model together, right? And this obviously is to go against the disruption in the market that's happening right now, and also to move things faster and at lesser cost. So this is really the goal that when we worked with them, that was established. In terms of phase 1, they wanted to say, oh, okay, it's good to work with EasyStack, but what we should deliver something that's of real value so that the shareholders and the consumers can see it's really an effective cloud. So there were 2 clouds that we deliver: the production cloud for the financial services base solution. At the same time, there's also the dev test. The dev test is important because that's like building the pipeline to make sure that all these newer products and services do get onto production eventually. And and obviously that's why there's kind of the arrows going back and forth in the diagram over there. But also that there were a couple of key highlight in terms of the capabilities I wanted to talk a little bit more here, right? So there's the flexible metering capability. That's really important. This solution has to be very flexible. There are lots of products besides the iServices, PaaS services that has all the virtual, you must have heard in the other session, the virtual firewall, virtual routers, all the virtual networking capabilities, as well as the traditional compute, memory storage, etc. All these entities or artifacts within the banking platform just forms the very basis for us to measure or meter the cost and usage. But at the same time, there's also the grouping of these products that run on top of this. Therefore, we need very flexible and configurable metering capabilities. That's why they wanted to customize that a lot, right? At the same time, there's also the second point over here, which is really securing the access to the cloud. I mean, there's a lot of data in there, not just one bank, hundreds of banks, and I don't know how, if you say millions of customers, potentially, yes. So it has to be really secure, and obviously that's why in the 3 data centers has to be owned by CIB FinTech, obviously for a lot of reasons, to be able to control access to it and set up policies and governance around it, right? So that's really the other thing. And in terms of the organization, they needed a way to also kind of manage the cloud capability. Traditionally OpenStack has the projects and tenant concept. We introduced another 1 or 2 more layers to it, which is more like organization. So organization meaning the different banks. At the same time, we have the cloud admin, which is the domain, overall domain. So we've got different type of clouds. So sort of customize it. At the same time, we allow a lot of the roles to be defined at each of the different levels of the structure, the organization structure, to limit access to it, to turn on and off. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the access control that we built in for CIB FinTech, because this is what that's needed by their end member banks and their consumers, right? So then the third point, bare metal management and also ability to provision and manage a hybrid. It's really important because from day one, CIB FinTech, over the past 10 over years, with CIB Bank being the base for the business, there's a lot of data that's in the system, different types of data. Even now you have a lot more social media type of data, but we needed to build some big data analytics platform to be able to do a lot of the campaign and introducing new products to the users as these products get rolled out. So therefore, there's this emphasis on bare metal, meaning that the traditional analytics engines would run much better in this sort of situations, right? And the clustering, that would help to do that. And then the last point in here, which would be the centralized monitoring and management platform. So we use Ceilometer to capture the OpenStack-based metrics. At the same time, we also use Zabbix to capture the non-OpenStack metrics, right? And then we kind of consolidate those using our approach, and we have workflows and things that end of the day we would display using Grafana, which is a very popular open source visualization dashboard out there in the market, and a lot of the companies and organizations using it today. And it allows you to configure the alerts and notification as well for this sort of cases, right? So that was just a very quick highlight on the solution capabilities that we provided in there. In terms of the technology roadmap, we've already gone past phase 1 on the left column. It was done in 6 months, which is quite amazing given that we only barely signed the contract and things had to move like at amazing speed. It was deployed to around 200 plus hosts, even though it wasn't a large scale rollout, but it was like 4 months to get it done, But the 4 months was really taken to establish a lot of the common architecture components and frameworks to build the reusable building blocks in this platform. At the same time, to plan and design the solution architecture from phase 1 to actually be adoptable for future if you want to upgrade OpenStack later on. A lot of the things would become seamless, right? Of course, the third point is really to actually kind of knowledge transfer, or to make sure that the guys in CIB FinTech, the technical team, they are confident and comfortable moving along with us in beyond the phase 1 project, and they have some technical capabilities to handle what we built for them, right? And then in terms of phase 2, it was targeted for 9 months. It's currently ongoing. We're talking about thousands of nodes deployment. This is a big rollout. There's going to be a focus around user experience, improving that in terms of the way we navigate a lot of the UIs that we provide in there, the auto scaling, giving a lot of statistics that reports of all the moving parts from IaaS to PaaS to some of the bank as a service capability products. There's also a lot of integration that it would help the business. For example, the public cloud integration. I mean, imagine if one of the member banks wants to actually deploy their products to another country, maybe in Australia, you know. So with this platform, we'll have the integration with AWS, for example, Azure, that would be able to run on some of the services over here because the data will reside here for the Australian customers and consumers, and it will meet some of the regulatory requirements. So this sort of situations has been really thought out, growing the business beyond the boundaries of China today. And of course, the rest of the technical items below are really things that would kind of make it easier and cheaper for the developers of the products, you know, to adopt, you know, and I will not go into the details because I may not have enough time, right? So, yep, this is interesting. There's not a lot of details I can go into, but feel free to, you know, come to me, you know, after the session. But just want to summarize a little bit of where we are going. So with the banking and finance service provider, CIB FinTech, before that was CIB Bank, and they had a lot of the traditional, you know. So a lot of the business was more old school, you know, with the brick and mortar, you know, teller, you know, branch banking, you know, things would get submitted, a lot of back-end services would happen, and then things would move, you know, a couple of days and it gets done, etc. And then there's really this evolution that we're seeing, and they're the market leader. They want to make a difference to their member banks and their consumers that use the services. So it becomes a fintech industry provider where we provide the convenience, meaning a lot of these are app-driven, a lot of these are web self-service driven. You don't need the bank's branch to be available all the time. You can trigger things first, and then you can follow up later on, you know, by phone calls, and even a lot of it would be through your mobile device today. And then is to build the ecosystem, is to make kind of attract more members of the financial institutions to come on board and share, you know, that to utilize this platform and to reduce the cost. And this is really the key purpose of this evolution, if you will. And there's a lot of amount of business and intellectual property involved in here, and that's why industry cloud. It's really, I think it's really the next wave. You know, private cloud service it's one of those, but I think industry cloud for the industry leaders, not just in fintech, but the other verticals out there, can become a big play in the next, you know, couple of years, which EasyStack is looking at, and we feel that that's going to be really big. And of course, it's a co-innovation model, the client. So there's a lot of collaboration, code level, architectural level, etc., and a lot of skills transfer and knowledge transfer between different organizations, between us and the client organization. So there's a trust that's built up over time, and therefore this is an interesting model to adopt. And obviously, if anyone is keen to explore that with us, you know, we will be happy to talk to you on, right? And the rest of the items below is just to kind of summarize or highlight the architecture principles that was kind of coming out of this entire engagement up till now, but I'll not go much deeper into that. I have a couple of T-shirts I want to give away, so that's why I'm kind of rushing through this talk. But so the first 6 people who come up, I can just give you a T-shirt if you're interested. Yeah, just come up.